Hello friends, welcome to my studio. Now today we're going to do a fun little class using canes. You might have a cane box like this, greatly reduced little canes. And you know, we're going to make a mandala ring like this or like this or like this. So I guess this is another installment in the series I made them, what do I do with them now? And you know what? I really like making these. So let's get started. All right, to make our mandala ring, we're going to need clay. This is black clay rolled through the thickest setting of my pasta machine. Gonna need a stainless steel ring form. Gonna need some canes. Canes. Woohoo! Okay, poly paste, brush, and the usual tools, including a texture sponge. So let's start by taking this clay, as I said, rolled through the thickest setting of the pasta machine. I'm going to roll it through again with the sponge so I get a texture. Okay, now I am going to work on this piece of paper. Now, when you build your mandala, you start from the middle and you work out. This is a wonderful project for all those little canes you have. I know, file this under more stuff to do with your great canes. Doink. Okay, got one there. Now I'm going to use this cane. I really like it. I only made this cane once. I may have to make more. And I'm going to need 6 slices. Am I going to make it? I think I have some more somewhere. 3, 4, 5, 6. And you know, when you're making mandalas, you can use canes, round canes, triangle-shaped canes, teardrop-shaped canes. 1. And I do want to make sure that they're all going the same way. La la la. So let's just put this on the opposite side. Doink. Like so. And you'll notice I'm not really pushing them down. I'm just kind of putting them sort of in position because I may have to reposition them. It's more than likely that I will have to do that. So I really don't want to press them down too hard. Doink. This guy looks like... Okay, maybe move this one over a tad this way. Maybe move this one over like... Oops. Oopsie. Sort of like that. Now this guy's going to have to get moved for sure. Come on, where are you going? Where are you going? See, that's not right. That's not right. He got turned around. See, this guy has to be turned. Just a tad, like so. This guy has to be moved in like that. And what I have to do is I have to make sure that the spaces between them are the same, right? Like these spaces between them should be the same. And, you know, they're close, they're not exact. This guy has to move a bit, I think. Like so. Does this guy need to move a bit? That, you know what, that looks pretty good to me. It does. And I really do like this cane because it looks like it's shadowed. It has a real kind of three-dimensional look to it, doesn't it? Okay, so what next? I know. Let's take these guys because I really like them. And I'm going to put these guys right here. Like that. Now, I turned that. I don't know if it matters, but I might as well try to be a little more consistent. Just a tad. Okay. How is everybody doing? Someday I'll figure out how to take care of that sound. Someday. I fear it will not be today. I think I want to put something bigger here. But what would that bigger thing be? This is bigger. So I tend to, you know, experiment. I'll take something and I'll try it, and if I like it, I'll leave it, and if not, I just move on to the next thing that might work. And when I cut, sometimes I just gently roll, especially the round ones. So as I'm cutting, I just kind of roll the cane, and I think that it squashes less. Like so. Okay. Now, let's take some little teeny tiny canes. Oh, I shaped this into like a little teeny rice shape. Do I want that shape? Or do I want round? I think I want round. I just need to have to, I just need to have, I have to find, I want a tiny blue one. Here's a tiny blue one. That's a rather chalky blue. That'll be fine. Oh, no, that's the one. Now, I'm gonna need 12 of these. So I have to reduce just enough to get 12. So this box is sort of my leftover canes from other things because I can't bear to just throw them away. So they end up getting reduced really tiny, and they find their way into this box, and then maybe into a mandala or a ring, or, excuse me, we are making a ring, but I have used these to make other rings. 3, 4, 5, 6, let's just see. There we go. Aw, this is looking really good, I think. That's a good way to use all those little canes you've got sitting around. And if you're starting from scratch and you don't have a lot of canes, you know what? These are really good canes to make because they're really basic. And you can use them for a great many things. And in a lot, there are many applications for them. I wonder what Vernon's doing. He's doing something upstairs. Now here's a turquoise. That's annoying, right? You see, I don't have children. I just have furry children. So I have no one to help me with computers or to explain to me what those annoying sounds are. I have nephews, but they're far, far away. So I got no help. I get no help. I only needed 6 of those. Now what? I've got all these left. I could put something there, right there, or I think I'll just leave it. I'm going to leave it plain. Okay, so now let me find a cutter. That's too small. This one is a little bit larger than the others that I made. Unfortunately. Yep, it's definitely bigger. But I'm going to use it anyway. Okay. All right, so this particular one, this ring is going to be larger than this. And I want to cut a little more off. It seemed like there was a little extra on one side. Okay, so I am going to use this instead of this. Now, on the original ring that I made, I had used this. This is a Fat Daddy-O form. And, you know, because it's so much larger, the curvature is less. So you can see it's kind of flattened. So this time I'm going to use this one, which is going to give me a more domed piece, a higher dome. Now I'm just going to work around And what I want to make sure I have no gapping. See that gap right there? Well, that's not good. I don't want that gap. Uh-oh, did something fall out? No, don't think. Not funny. Now, I could actually put some more little cane slices around if I wanted to. I certainly have enough area here. But do I want to? I think that it's actually fine with the black showing on the outside, so I'm going to leave it. But I am going to put a little crystal. Just one crystal. This is my little crystal box. So let me grab one, not the smallest. Put it right in the center. And I'm just going to push it with the back of the pencil. And I want to sink it down deep enough so that the clay's kind of coming up around the sides a bit, so it won't come out. All right, so there's our very simple mandala for our ring. So I'm going to bake this. My oven is cold, 300 degrees. I'll set it at 300 degrees, and I'm gonna cure it for about, I would say, 30 minutes. Okay, then I'll be back. So this is cured. I'm gonna just pull it off. And if you look at it from the side, see this? Well, that's of course the edge of the clay. And I have to actually sand it because I would like to eliminate that whole area, all of that, make it nice and flat. So this is my P80 Abra net, and it does a nice job, and it's really fast because it's so coarse. Now, perhaps I didn't have to make the black clay so thick. You know what? I'm glad I did, because this part of the process requires that I push down and I scoot this around. And if this black clay were too thin, chances are I would actually push it in. But it's nice and thick, so that's not going to happen. Not gonna happen. All right, here we go. Hey. Let's take a look. Let me dust it off a bit. And now you can see from the side. Now, I can see, I think, a little bit of extra clay there. But it really took a lot of it off. Maybe just a few strokes like that, and I'm done. That's all. I think that's pretty good. Could probably sand a bit more off here. But I think you can see that this happens pretty quickly. Aubranet P80. All right. Now I'm going to fill this and make it solid. Now, making it solid is going to, of course, make the ring heavier. But through the curing process, it's going to be simpler because I'll be able to cure it like this. You see, this will be actually in the baking powder or baking soda, excuse me. And then the band will be raw, but you know, it's not going to distort the back of this guy because it's solid, okay? If it were hollow, I would have to figure out another way of curing it. So this is one of those situations where I'm just going to do what is the practical thing. And yes, the ring is going to be a bit heavier. Now let me get rid of all this clay dust. Okay, here we go. All right, now I've got to fill that. So the easiest way for me is to take some clay, black clay. Now I could use scrap for this, I could. But I just happen to have a lot of black clay that I used for the alphabet series sitting right next to me. So, hey, I'm just going to use it. So I roll it into a ball and then I cut the ball in half. Now I'm going to take this and try to reshape this so that it fills this space. Like so. And look, I have a hole. Got to try to fill that hole. Don't want any holes, okay? All right. Now I'm going to use poly paste for this. Liquid could work, but my studio is such a mess I can't even find my liquid clay. It's buried underneath something here. Okay, so let's just put the poly paste in here. And you know, the poly paste is just going to improve the bond between the raw clay and the cured clay. That's the purpose. Put it in and start pushing it to the edge. Now this appears to be a tiny bit small. So what I will do is roll a sheet and try to fill it in, but you can see that it's just a tiny bit small. Not the right volume. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pull it out because it's even easier. It's actually easier to start again than it is to roll the sheet, try to put it in there, make it fit, you know. So let me just try. Re-roll the ball. And this time when I cut, I will cut less off. Let's just cut that much off and squish it into shape. Sometimes it's just faster to start again. Put the liquid in, not the liquid, put the paste in. And now press the clay in to the piece, like so. Really pushing because I really want it in there. I don't think there's any air between the raw and the cured, but hey, you never know. All right, now let's trim away. Now, I've never cut myself on this blade. I never have. And so, see that Band-Aid? That's not because I cut myself. That is different. I have a troublesome nail that splits. So I just put a little Band-Aid on it. It's very annoying. So when the blade, as I'm cutting, if I feel like it's sticking, then I just rock it. Like, don't. Actually, I don't even rock the blade. I'm rocking the form underneath it. Watch. See, I'm just turning it like that. Okay. So I'm holding the blade in position, and I'm kind of moving the clay into the blade. So I will just keep doing this and cutting bits away until it's perfectly flat on the back. And I let the blade glide across the edge when it touches. So I'm not holding the blade at an angle this way, I'm holding it this way. I think you can see that. Now, the thing about it is you're not going to cut yourself either if you sort of center yourself and you're calm when you do it, okay? This is not the kind of thing you want to do when you've just had a fight with your children, your dog is misbehaving, you know, that kind of thing. Well, you probably don't want to be handling sharp things anyway. So let's take a look. That looks pretty good. Pretty good. Can't really complain too much. Just the tiniest bit of trimming. You know what I'm going to do now, because I'm very close. Just going to take this guy and roll across the back. See if I can flatten it out any better. And maybe even move some of the clay from the middle area to the perimeter. If you guys have been watching, you know I say this all the time. It's not a race. We are not racing to the finish. Okay, I think that's pretty darn good. Now, what I'm going to do is roll a sheet of black clay through a very thin setting. Let's say setting number 6. I'm going to take this clay, move my T over, and roll it through 6. Forward. Here we are at 6. Now, I'm going to roll it through again with the sponge. And then slowly separate the two. Might actually help to put the clay down and just kind of pull the sponge off. Now, ordinarily, my clay is not soft and it's certainly not sticky, but I had taken, this black clay is not black from the package. It is black from my scrap that I then mixed black out into to turn my scrap black. Look how thin it is. I can see through it. So perhaps I should have rolled it through 5. I'm just going to continue because I know I can get it off. Just kind of go slow, take it easy. And I really only need enough to cover the back. Is that enough? I think that might be enough. Now, later, I'll just pick this out of the sponge. I do this all the time, and it's always fine, and now look what I did. Oh, okay. Not a problem. I will take care of it. Okay, let's pick a cutter that is close to the size of this guy. Too small. Too big. I used too big. Cut a disc. All right, now I'm going to put some poly paste right here along the perimeter. And you don't want to put too much because remember, poly paste doesn't cure clear. So if you have like a blob of it, well, it's going to look like a white blob. So you want to use enough, not too much. Very good. Now I'm going to trim the excess away with my blade. Okay. So now this is ready to be cured. I am going to put it back in the oven. It will go in for another 20 to 30 minutes, and I will just place it like that on a tile. So after that's done, I'll be back. All right, here's the one I made, and it's ready. It's backed. Here's one I made before. I like it better, I think, and I like the size better. This could be a nice little pendant. It's kind of big for a ring. So I think I'm going to make the ring out of this guy. Made the same way, but I think a better size overall. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually take my Abra net and sand the edge. You see, it's not really that great looking on the edge, so let me just see if I can improve it. Gotta try anyway. Da, da, da. Da, da, da. Okay, we're getting there. Looking good. I just want it to look nice. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Let me get rid of the clay dust. All right. Now here is my stainless steel ring. It is a swivel ring, only this swiveler is stuck, which is just fine. All right, so I've rolled this through setting 3. Let me double check. Okay, that's fine. And let's measure the ring band. It measures like 1/4 of an inch. So let me cut a strip that is 1/4 of an inch. Here we go. Like so. Trim. And now I'm going to just wrap it around. Oh, I could probably have made this thinner. A bit thinner. But I think it's fine. All right. Just like that. Bring the sides together. All right, good. Okay, now let me trim. Trim the other side. There's not much to be trimmed. I will sand this later. All right, so there's where it meets at the join. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put some poly paste right in the center. Okay, just right there. Like so. Now let me find where the two, there it is right there. And that is what I'm going to press into that poly paste. Now, how am I going to arrange this? I'm going to put one finger here, one finger here. And I know that I'm going to try to position this guy so that it's aligned with my fingers, like so. Okay. Really gonna push this down. I want it to really go down in there in that poly paste. Now before I bake it, I'm going to trim away any excess clay, but I also want to look at it and make sure that the band isn't leaning, that it's perpendicular to the back of the piece, you see? And it looks good. So let me just get rid of some of this excess clay. Like so. And are you centered? It looks pretty good to me. Maybe it's not perfect, but I think it looks pretty good. Gonna have to move it a little bit over. So when I looked at it from the side, now it's more centered. So, you know, you do have a little bit of latitude to move it a touch. Okay. Worst comes to worst. If you really need to, you just pull it off and you start again, right? It's better to get it right. You know, there have been times when I have just said, oh, it's good enough. Do you know what happens? I always know that I could have done better. Those are the pieces that never get worn. Okay, I think that's pretty darn good. So now this will be cured. This is going to be cured. This is going to be sitting in baking soda just like that. And I'm going to bake this for, I think I'm going to make it 30 minutes. Okay, because it takes 10 minutes for my oven to get up to temp. So there we go. I'll be back. All right, so here's the ring. I cleaned it up, and you know, I really like this pattern a lot. I like the amount of black that is exposed. I do like it. I have to do one thing though, because I want you to see the difference between these. See this? See all that clay in there? Well, that clay is going to ensure that the top is a lot less likely to come off. Now, this, I could probably wear this a while, but at some point, I think this top is going to pop off the base. There just isn't enough clay contact. There isn't enough contact between the top and the ring itself. So we're going to correct that. It's not a big deal. It's pretty easy to do. What I need is I need to roll a little cylinder of black clay first, because I'm going to fill that space with clay. Okay. Now I'm going to fill it because I do not want that top, this pretty top, to pop off of that bottom. And I'll cry. Oops. Okay, I probably wouldn't cry, but I wouldn't be really happy about it. I wouldn't be happy about it. I think I need more. I think I need more. I need a bigger cylinder. And you know, this is, of course, I'm working with Kato, and I did soften the clay when I made it black. And you can see, if you're experienced working with my clay, I think you can see that it's pretty much softer than it usually is in the package. Okay, not a problem. Okay, so let's take this and cut it in half. And this is going to get tucked up in there, like so. All right. But let me try to cut the angle. I mean, the clay is soft enough. I could just jam it up in there if I wanted to. I could. But let me see if I can cut so that it really does get tucked up in there a little bit easier. Because I want to fill that space. I do. And the best way is to create, see? So now I've pretty much filled that space. That's good. Okay, I need poly paste because, yes, I need poly paste because cured raw. I'm just gonna take and brush some right down in there. And up onto the band too, because this clay will be pulled up onto the band. And then I'll do my best to make it appear that they are one. Okay. pushing, pushing, pushing. I'm going to trim some of the excess away just by cutting like that, so I just don't have to deal with it. Now let's try to work some of this clay up onto the band. And I'm pushing quite hard, but I'm not like that, because to tell you the truth, if I pushed in the wrong way, I could probably separate this from that. It could happen. So I'm holding the top in my right hand, and I'm just pushing the band against the clay, like so. And I think that's pretty good. I'm pretty sure that I filled that space in there. Okay, so let me take, let's see, you know what? I'm gonna trim it first. And you know something? Before I even do that, I am gonna fill the other side. I am. Oh my, one of my lights isn't on. All right, I'm back. It was a little dark. Isn't that funny? It's like, oh, maybe I need stronger glasses. Nope, I just need to turn on the light. So now maybe you can even see better. Now, I wonder if I can use this little guy. Let me see. Let me see. Are you big enough? I think so. I think so. Yeah, I think you'll do. That'll do. Okay. Okay, so see here, you see what's happening. And I think I can trim now. All right, I'm going to take my blade and I'm just going to try, see how I'm holding it against the side right here? Louie. Hello, Lou. Okay, just like that. And let me move to the other side. And the same thing, just take it and cut it all the way down to the back. And that looks nice and tidy. Just like so. Now let me smooth the top a bit. Just pulling the clay over onto itself. Just like that. Now I am going to sand it later. That is going to be happening. That looks good. You know what I need to do down here though, as you guys can see. Got a little hole there. So if you find you have a tiny little hole like that, just take a little bit of clay and push it in, and then do your best to smooth it out. Like so. And then pull the raw clay down, because you really want the raw clay band to make good contact with this cured piece. Okay. That will make it much more secure, much less likely to break off. Okay, so let me work on that. You don't need to watch me every step of the way. You just want to make it look like these pieces are one, that you do not have a cured band, and that you filled it with more raw clay. So you just do the best you can to smooth it over, like so. All right, so let me do that, and then I will be back and show you what I've done. Okay, so I have smoothed, and I think I've done a pretty fair job of this. Now, if you find yourself in a position where you think, I don't have enough clay, I don't have enough clay to push over, you do. It just happens to be out here. So if that happens, just squeeze and you will get more clay to play with. Okay, now I have more clay to smooth over. Okay, so just remember, you do have more clay. It's on the outside. Okay, so now it's time to trim away that clay on the outside. I'm going to take my blade, and best I can, I'm going to try to slice straight down. Okay, so I got to make a curve first around the band, but now I'm going to try to cut straight down. Oops. And then I'm going to drop it. You see? Like that. And it's not exactly straight. It's kind of going out a bit. Not really a problem. Let's see what happens on this side. Because really, I want the two sides to match. How about that? What a concept. Now, do they match? This one is a little bit more cut in, I think. So let me trim just a bit away from this side and see if I can start to match them up a little better. Now, this also seems to be going in a bit and out. I didn't do that intentionally. It just happened. Get off you. Now, if I can't replicate that curve, I will just cut it off. Okay, so let's do it this side. And just try to cut at the base, cut it straight. Okay, and that's pretty good. It's probably never going to be perfect on both sides, but I think that that looks pretty darn good. Okay, so now this piece, of course I have to check, and I am going to sand. So there are areas like that right here where there's a little bit too much clay right there. See? You see that lump? But that can be sanded later, so I don't really have to worry much about that. Now, at this point, I can put my signature cane on, my initial cane. Let me get this guy. And where shall I put it? I think I'm going to put it, I don't necessarily want to put it here. I wonder if I'll feel it on my finger. Probably not, because it is thin. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a bit of poly paste, put it right there. Take my signature cane drop it on, and just press it down. And by pressing, I'm also sort of rounding the cuts. And now this will be cured again the same way, just like this, and baking soda. So I'll be back. So the ring is in the oven, and I'm looking at these various pieces, and I think, you know what, this is a nice little class to teach you how to make a mandala and how to turn it into a ring, and primarily how to use the things that you have like this. But I think I need to tell you more. And so we're just going to have a little class on this kind of tiny cane reduction. Because, you know, when you're using round canes like this, it's not too difficult. You just have to kind of noodle it around, make sure that the clay is nice and supple, and then you just roll it out. And that's easy when it's round, right? Well, when it's triangular, it's not so easy. And I'll show you the difference between this triangle and where is and like this guy, because there's a difference. Look at these triangles. This is quite rounded in the corners, and then this guy is just like sharp, right? Well, I'll tell you what happened. This guy was, I just turned it into a triangle at this size. And that's easy enough. You just pinch, 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 and you move, move, move. But it's not so easy to get a really sharp corner on your canes because I'm just pinching the shape and I'm not making it any smaller. In order to get this kind of sharpness in a cane, like a triangle cane, you really do have to reduce it because you start out large, you pinch into the shape, then it's through the continual stroking right here at the base that you get the sharpness. Now, I can do that a bit. Let's see if I can do that with this cane. I'm going to cut some off at the original size. Okay, and let's try to make these corners sharp without altering the size. It's not easy. It's not as easy as starting out big and then stretching and stroking when the cane is actually larger. So I'll try. But I have much more success when I start with a larger cane and then reduce it down and pull it out. Because, as I said, it's kind of the stroking along here that creates that sharp corner. It's much less this top like this. It's more this action, like so. Now maybe I can pull it out and push it back in to make it big again. Maybe. Okay, that's not too bad. Now, I did manage to make the corners sharper, and I made it just slightly smaller, but not too much smaller. So when you're reducing triangles, just remember that in order to get that nice sharp corner, you have to do a little bit of this kind of stroking. Well, okay, I'll tell you, I do. It's the only way I can get nice sharp corners in my triangles. Now, if you want some really tiny triangles, then this is the way to do it, right? Just take and keep pulling and stroking at the base. And pulling it out. Stroking and pulling. Once it gets nice and soft in there, you can just pull. So I'm just holding the cane down with my left hand and pulling it out with my right. And every now and then losing it. Flip it over to the other side, like so. And it just gets smaller and smaller, but you have nice sharper corners now than the roundies that I had here. All right, so there's one thing. So it just takes a little practice, but it's fun practice, isn't it? Okay, so the next thing I want to look at is if you want to make mandalas like this, then you might consider how you make your bullseye canes. Now this has a very large lime green center, and then I had put a rather thin turquoise wrap. Well, it's fine at this size. You see it just fine, but look what happens here. I mean, I still see it, but it's pretty much not there. Okay. And I think this would have been better had I had a thicker, let's say I started with this, I made a thicker wrap of turquoise around it. Then the turquoise, when you reduce down to this size, would be more apparent. It wouldn't get lost. Okay? So let's think. What else can I tell you about these? Well, essentially, I guess they're very, very simple canes. This, I think, is a pretty effective one. Let me see if I can actually get it out. It's kind of tough. I love these little boxes, but sometimes it's not so easy to get the canes out of the box without poking a hole. But I think that this is a pretty successful cane for the mandalas, because you clearly see the three, the core, the wrap, and then the second wrap around. They didn't get lost like this guy. Okay, you can see the difference. So if you're going to be making the mandalas, you might consider that, because you're going to reduce everything so tiny, that when you make your bullseyes like this, that you make sure that the wraps are thick enough to withstand that extreme reduction you're going to do. Now these are kind of interesting too, because the orange, the red, and the magenta, they're on this side, well, they tend to run more toward the translucent side. They aren't translucent, not purely translucent, but the pigments and the way it's mixed, this is not an opaque color. And so when they get reduced down, see, I can still see that, the colors and the separation, but it's not as apparent. It just doesn't jump out at you like certain more opaque, the more opaque colors, like these guys, you know, white and turquoise. It really kind of pops out at you. This is a lot more subtle. Not a bad thing, but perhaps if I had added white maybe to that orange, you would see the orange much more clearly than you do here. It's a much more softer, more subtle kind of look. Now, everything you put in your mandalas doesn't have to like scream, look at me, does it? Because sometimes there are major players, secondary players, and sometimes there are those who are just kind of taking up space. But their function is as important, I think, as the others. Okay, so I think that that's all I have to say about that right now. I want to look at the mandalas themselves. Okay, so I covered a little bit about the canes themselves. So let's talk about pattern. Let's talk about pattern. Now, these are some that I made a while ago. And, you know, of all the ones I made, these are not the ones that I like the most. I think I like that one. But these others, it's like relentless pattern. I look at this and I think my eyes start, oh, please, let me rest. Let me rest somewhere. There's no place to rest here. I managed to cover and obliterate the whole background. I just kept putting little teeny tiny, every space is full. And it leads to, for me, a certain confusion, visual confusion. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that's the way my eye responds to this. This one, a little less so, because I didn't cover every single cane with another cane, which is apparently what I decided to do there. And I don't know, the contrast, there's something about it that my eyes and my brain doesn't scream stop when I see this one. Yeah, it's still heavily patterned. Yeah, I covered most of the background, but there's something about it. Maybe it's this violet ring. There are distinct rings here, whereas here, I'm not sure there's just, I'm not seeing distinctively anything. I just see a lot of stuff going on. Some of these are a little interesting because, you know, and I'm not saying I like this. I'm not honestly sure what I think of it. But the scaling up at the border, I think, helped a little bit, but still not my favorite. I don't know if it's the colors, whatever, but once again, I was like, oh, I'm covering every single space. So I did. I'm not sure it's that's successful. This one, well, I don't know. It's got that same kind of excessive quality to me. And also, I'm not sure I like this color, these colors. I just kept going. And I just used my case. Now, here's a little tiny one. Once again, I obliterated the background. This one, background obliteration, but for some reason I find this a little more successful. Maybe it's just this green and the green kind of dropping down to the edge, and the fact that I didn't put more canes on top of canes on top of canes is okay. So I'm exhausted. So this was the first ring that I made, and I was going to do a class on this, but it got kind of out of control. But, you know, it was sort of a continuation of this thing where I was filling every single space. I think these are more successful. I think that seeing the background makes them more successful and makes them more visually relaxing. I mean, there's a lot of pattern, there's a lot going on because there are a lot of little pieces. But, you know, you have to let your eye and your brain relax somewhere. I mean, that's just my feeling about it. And so those places to relax, I think, are largely the exposed background. So it isn't just like a bazaar with just this profusion of color and pattern and dots and blah, blah, blah. So I prefer these, much more. I like them much more than these. These were so much more work, right? And I keep them around sort of to remind myself that, you know, sometimes I find myself here. Anyway, so I hope that's been helpful. Now, there are no right or wrong answers. I mean, there's just what I perceive. Your perception might be totally different and absolutely valid. I'm just giving you what I think. That's all. Okay? All right, so let's get back to class. Woohoo. Stop. Doink. Okay, so the ring is cured. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my Micro Mesh 1800 and I'm just going to sand lightly the canes. Because, you know, you guys probably notice they get a little dirty. And this is easy enough. I tried to cut them all the same thickness, so I should be able to clean them up nicely. I don't want to scratch them up too badly. That's why I'm using the micro mesh and not the Abra net. You know, micro mesh is actually for sanding automotive. It's like an automotive use, so it's fine enough to sand paint. It's great stuff, really great stuff. Okay, all right, so that already looks better to me. Now we have to deal with this. See, here's the back, and this has to be sanded. This surface, this all the way around like that. So this time I am going to use the Abra net P180. And I'm just going to try my very best. See, I think the P80 is too coarse. So I will just take my time. Just sand this, okay? And there are definitely areas that are going to be a little bit tougher to get to. But just do your best. I try to do my best. And I may wrap this around. Hey, maybe I'll just use this guy. Okay, so this is a fine sanding sponge. I buy these about once a year. I go to Harbor Freight and I buy like 10 packages of sanding sponges because Harbor Freight, they're really cheap there. And if you go to like Home Depot or Lowe's or a hardware store, you can be spending a couple bucks per sponge. Here, it's like a couple bucks for a package of 10. So I think it's time for me to take a trip to Harbor Freight. Anyway, this nice little corner makes it slightly easier, not slightly, a lot easier for me to get right there, right in there. It may take a little bit, but now if this is moving a little too slow, I can even take this and wrap it tightly around the corner like so. See? Create the corner with the Abra net, pull it taut, try to get in there like so. And this is working much faster. See? Now, I wasn't able to get all the way down in here. I'll have to work a little harder at that. But this is working out quite nicely. Oops. All right, so let's sand this plane just the same way. Just like that. Just like so. Okay, so once again, I'm not quite getting into that corner, sanding a little bit away here, but I'm not too concerned about that. This side, I need to be a little more careful because my signature. So, and maybe it'll never be absolutely perfect. Maybe it doesn't have to be. The important thing is that the top doesn't pop off the base. That was actually the most important thing. All right, this side. I'm going to sand this edge too. I don't really want any like sharp edges around the band. And this was like, And it's easy enough to do, just a couple of little strokes, and you've softened that nicely. Now, I had rolled the band through setting 3, and it's thicker than it needs to be. So if in the process of sanding you actually make that thinner, it's not a big deal. It's probably a good thing. Okay, so we're getting there. Getting there, getting there. Getting there. And you know what? It's looking pretty good. It's looking good. It may be a little difficult to tell because of the, you know, the black gets grayed out when you sand it. It does. Now to get into this little, into the corners, I'm just taking my Abra net and folding it. And then just like so. Like that. Now the Abra net, okay, I folded it this way, which is sort of perpendicular to the edge. Now what happens when you fold it parallel to the edge? Is it easier? Is it harder? Because there's definitely kind of a grain to this stuff. It's not like this. It has no grain. Whether you fold it one way or another way, it doesn't make any difference. But sometimes, see, it's easier, I think, that way than it is when I fold it cross grain. Yeah, it grabs more, which means that it also sands more, I do believe. But if you get the Abra net, then just experiment with it. Fold it both ways and see what works best, because they do not work the same. Okay. And when you fold it sort of parallel to the sides like this, it also is easier to fold. So it's easier also to get into little crevices like that without necessarily, you know, messing up your signature cane. If you happen to place it as I did, where I did. Okay, looking good, looking good. This side looks better than this side because see, this side right here and right here, the fact that it's still dark means that the sandpaper didn't reach it, or the paper didn't reach it. Now, when this happens, you know, you just have to decide how important is that to you. Because if it's important to you, you're going to have to put more clay in and bake it again. If it's less important to you, then you will just live with the fact that there's a little tiny bit that isn't perfect there. And only you know whether that's important to you. Now, for me, I'm going to live with it. Because I'm not selling this ring. You know, I'll wear it or I'll give it away or something. But I don't really sell my work all that much. So if it's for me, then that little imperfection that nobody's ever going to see is not an issue. Now, if it's something that everybody sees, that's really apparent, then I either correct it. If I can't correct it, then the piece just finds its way into a box. I have boxes of things. I mean, I don't give those pieces away because they're not good enough to even give away, in my opinion. Okay, so there we go. This is sanded. All right, and you can see that I actually sanded some of the texture away. Does that bother me? No. So I'm going to clean it up and then I'll be back. And the way I clean it up is in a little soapy water with a toothbrush. Here's my toothbrush. I'll be back. Okay, guys, so I cleaned it up. And I really like it, even though I'm not a purple person. I am not a purple person, but I like it because I happen to think purple and green are so wonderful together. Woohoo! Okay, so, by the way, if you want me to show you how to make that little cane, I'll do it. Okay, now, if you see how scratched up everything got? Well, sandpaper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Nivea, this ratty Nivea. Nivea is best on clay. IMO, because it's so oily. It's like too oily on skin. It takes so long to work its way into your skin. Okay, so I'm just going to try to work this Nivea in, but you know, I must have had a little water on my brush, my toothbrush. I'm sure I did. Bad me. Oh, oil and water. Do not mix. Okay, well, let me work on the back. And you know what? If the front doesn't if I don't see that black clay isn't coming back, then I'm going to take soap and water and remove it and start again. Okay. I thought I dried my brush. Yeah, I might have to do that. Bad me. Bad me. Let me see what happens if I rub some off. Because I don't want that film. If I see any film on here, I'm going to scrub it off. Okay, so let's do the back. Brush. Do I need to get another brush? Let me see if I can completely dry this puppy out. Okay, so I just want to get some of this cream on the brush without having like big glops of it on. Okay, do you see what's happening? Yes. What was gray is turning black again. And what will happen is as this Nivea soaks into the clay, it's going to turn this beautiful matte black. But that looks so much better. Now, what I like about using Nivea is it is totally non-toxic. It's widely available, and yeah, you know what? It's not this permanent thing like you just put some permanent glaze on your work. No, maybe in a year you'll have to put more on. But I don't think that's a big deal. And it is non-toxic because, hey, it's for your hands. I use it a lot. And I like the way it restores the blackness to the clay, particularly after you sand it. You know how you sand something and if there's black clay underneath, that the sanding dust makes it gray. Grays it out, and even if you wash it, it's still gray. I don't know what that's about, but an application of Nivea restores that black color. Okay, ta-ta. Nivea cream, great for clay. All right, so you know what? That's the end of this little class. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. And I hope you make lots of mandalas out of your clay. And remember, respect the negative space. Negative space. Okay? So, I'm Donna Kato, and until we meet again, bye. Doink.